On this episode of Brian the Guys, we rank those X-Men films. Welcome everyone to another episode of Brian the Guys. And I have always with me, it seems, the trio, the threesome, the terrible twos. No, wait, there's three guys. I don't know what I'm saying. Dre Finch and Tyler Patrick.
What
And
up?
what up, guys?
It's
What up?
Tyclops right now. Anytime we do X-Men stuff, it's Tyclops.
Fincherine.
Venturine and Tyclops. Shink.
And I don't have a nickname for myself.
Is it Brycrawler?
Brycrawl. Yeah, I like
Bryce Man.
Brycrawl.
Ooh.
Bryce Man. Yeah, okay. Bryce Man. There you go. So anyway, tonight we have done ranking the heroes and villains, what we think is the top 3 heroes, top 3 villains, bottom. But tonight we are ranking the X-Men movies. So I think that my list could possibly be somewhat controversial. Who knows? I was hoping that Brandon was going to join us because then I knew it would be controversial, but things happen. So let's just kind of get to it. We'll do our usual Finch, Tyler, me, and we can definitely talk about these movies and kind of go from there. And we'll try not to be here all night, but who knows? We love each other. I love you guys.
See, my what I'm most excited about is I have an idea what's going to be in your like bottom 3 potentially, and I
Okay.
have an idea what might be in your top 3. But other than that, that's where the excitement is.
Yes. Because my rankings have changed. Because a few months ago, I was watching all of them, and I got up to Dark Phoenix, and then some other show came out, and then I took a break, and then I was just like, I'm just gonna watch them all again, or whatever. And my thoughts have changed. That's
Thanks
the
to my
stuff
bro
right there.
Brian.
That's the stuff right there. So what are our drinks of choice tonight? So it's not my drink of choice, and no, I'm not getting paid for advertising. But my drink of choice tonight is Gold Peak Extra Sweet Tea. I feel it's like the best freaking tea there is. Arnold Palmer is probably in number 2, but I didn't get any of that. That is my drink of the evening. And Cyclops, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I have some Arizona green tea that I was drinking, but I just opened a Smirnoff Ice screwdriver.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if we're going to talk about these bottom movies, I gotta, tip one up a little.
Maybe a Finch, what are you drinking tonight, boy?
As always, I have multiple drinks with me. So, of course, the water, because we're talking. Got myself a homemade Bloody Mary right here in my Steelers mug or glass.
Yeah, boy.
And very similar to Tyler, I've got some Arizona green tea. So, got to stay hydrated while we do these things.
You have to stay hydrated.
Amen. All right, Bryce man.
All right.
Let's go.
Bryce man. Okay. Finch. So in the X-Men universe, we already know the timeline. We watched the video on YouTube. We've watched only the first 20 minutes because it's short and sweet with Tyler. Maybe we're like, let's see what Brian came up with since he spent the whole dang week looking at every single inconsistency that he could, just so he could have a reason for someone not to say, hey, what about that? Brian was overly prepared because that's the way his brain works. But you watched it, you know how the timeline goes. Now, let's tell you what's good. Finch. So we have 14 X-Men movies. I'm including Once Upon a Deadpool in here. I'm not including Deadpool and Wolverine. So we have 14 X-Men movies in the universe. Finch, let's freaking go. What's your number 14?
Starting at the bottom, right? So,
sorry for the bottom. Now we're still at the bottom.
Well, you said Deadpool and Wolverine is not there. Well, that's my very bottom, number 15, because we haven't seen it.
We all got there.
It might drop to number 1, based off of what we're looking at. But so my number 14 is Once Upon a Deadpool, only because I've never seen it. I've seen all the Deadpool movies except that one. I know it's literally what just it's is it Deadpool 2 or Deadpool 1?
It's Deadpool 2.
Deadpool 2.
It's Deadpool 2, but like rated PG-13
Yeah, with
and a little Christmassy something like
but
that.
it's cut with
Well,
scenes
you
with
really
Fred.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's cut with scenes with Fred Savage basically recreating The Princess Bride.
Princess I've seen that on the internet, like
Yeah,
just
so
clips.
Deadpool kidnaps him and has, you know, Fred Savage. So yeah,
Yeah, and then he's like complaining. He's like, "Well, you're not Marvel, you're Fox Marvel, right?"
he's like, yeah,
Yeah, I've seen like I said, I've seen clips of that, but only because I haven't seen the whole thing. I can't be like, "Oh, this is" so for me, it's number 14. Sorry, guys.
No, you're good. Tyler.
So we'll talk about Once Upon a Deadpool just a little bit later because I have some thoughts. But my number 14 is New Mutants. It's there because the movie is. I've only watched it once. It is kind of a mess once you learn about the production, how they shot it, then reshot it, and then reshot it again, and they kept trying to change the tone from their original vision. And it kind of you can kind of see in there. I just feel like if they had just stuck with their guns, maybe we would have had a really solid, different kind of movie. But yeah, it's New Mutants.
No, I I support that. My number 14 is the same as Finch's. It is Once Upon Deadpool. And because the funniest thing, the funniest thing was a Nickelback thing. And the Nickelback thing isn't even in that movie. It's just in the trailer. And I kind of feel like the movie just wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary. I love Deadpool 2. I thought it was a great movie, but the PG version, it just wasn't good enough to warrant being need to be made.
You know what? You know what, Brian? You guys convinced me. My number 14 is Once Upon a Deadpool. And you know why?
Fair.
Because I was sitting here thinking as you guys are talking, I think with the framing device, how they set it up, you could have easily made Once Upon a Deadpool and mixed the first movie and the second movie, since you're having him tell Fred
Boom.
Savage the story, and really made it something unique that because I've watched Once Upon with Solomon before, like we've watched most of it, and he kind of got bored halfway through it. So it could have been interesting to have cut the two movies into one movie. And
That would have worked really great.
and
Absolutely.
can we give an audible mention to the road cut of Days of Future Past, just because it was never theatrical released, but Once
That's
Upon a
the
Yeah, I
Deadpool
didn't put that on
was,
this list.
and that's what I'm saying. Once Upon a
Yeah.
Deadpool was in theaters.
well,
But
my Voodoo Fandango like puts that up above the because I bought the road cut, I guess, and when I put the digital code in or whatever, that's the only one that shows up for me. So I mean, I've seen it in theaters, so I saw the theatrical version, but all I remember really after rewatching it was the road cut. So
yeah, it's kind of like the Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. Like it's two different edits, but yeah, it was never released in theaters, so that's why I was like, we shouldn't put it on this list. But I just wanted to give an honorable mention to it.
No, for real. And I think I'm with you, like, because Princess Bride, talks about it basically being a love story, and Deadpool 1, he says this is a love story. So to if they would have mixed them in together into one movie, I think that would have been something good, something a little different. But yeah, it's just I mean, it's not horrible. It's just not needed, not necessary. So, Finch, what's your number 13?
my number 13, and I kind of feel like I want to switch it because of Tyler's answer for his bottom.
Can't
Uh,
switch it. I
uh,
I will allow it.
well, I'll tell you what it was. It was Dark Phoenix, just because similar to how Tyler mentioned it, I only saw it one time, and there's so much wrong with it. like it it kind of makes you mad when you watch it sometimes. At least I got mad at certain parts. I'm just like, really? So I mean, that's what I had. I'll leave it. It's fine.
All right. Tyler, what is
New
your number
Mutants.
New Mutants?
Yes, I
My,
switched it with Once Upon a Deadpool. New Mutants.
my number 13 is New Mutants as well.
It's gonna rain.
I finally watched it for the first time, so it's pretty fresh in my head. And I just remember watching that original trailer, and Jen and I my wife were really excited for it actually. Like we're like, "Oh, okay, this is gonna be like like a mutant horror movie? Like that sounds cool." And Jen was more open to watch like superhero movies with me at that time, but the horror aspect is what interests her even more. So I was like, yeah, we'll probably go see this together. But that was like 2017, like whatever, and it just got delayed so much. They didn't do any reshoots because people were too old, which is probably going to happen to Stranger Things. But I didn't think it was the worst thing because it did have a bit of like a Stranger Things feel, kind of Breakfast Club feel mixed with a horror movie. Like, and that's what they were going for, John Hughes mixed with Stephen King. But in the end, it just didn't deliver as well as it could have. But I like the characters. I thought the cast had pretty decent chemistry together. Anna Taylor Joy as Magic was pretty great. Sunspot probably could be recast, but the whole entire thing could have worked had it been kind of what it wanted to be.
Yeah, if they hadn't tried to re-edit it and reshoot it and change it and took it away from the director, I think it would have been solid. So it would have been different.
Yep, for real. Like, and as we'll get in the timeline, it does have some, at the time of this recording, Finch has not listened to our timelines. And I have a crazy, crazy ass theory for what could possibly happen in the future with X-Men movies. And if it comes true, I want Marvel to pay me money because I came up with that idea. It is mine. so make sure you listen to that podcast. So anyway, number 12, Fincherino. This is where it might get interesting.
So my number 12 is actually New Mutants. And it kind of goes with what you guys were saying, where Anya Taylor-Joy, she kicked butt as Magic. We had Arya Stark, can't remember her real name, Maisie Williams, I think. She was pretty good. The cast of the young characters was pretty good. I liked where I thought the movie could go and what like potential future. Although when it came out, I believe Disney had already purchased Fox and it was already
Yep.
not gonna happen pretty much. But I liked where it could have went. I liked the take that they did, like how they tried to market it as like a horror film in the X-Men universe. And I liked the little inclusion, I believe there was some Essex teases and the inclusion of the doctor who I believe is the
Mhm.
same doctor from Logan.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I've seen it twice, and once was because I fell asleep, and then the second time was I watched it in its entirety.
Dude, I fell asleep like 6 times watching.
Well, like, it originally was shot to be a horror film, and then I think if I remember right, the Essex stuff was trying to tie it into Deadpool and Logan and stuff, that was part of the reshoots and, like, the re-edits. So
Sure, makes sense.
it just came a kebab of a mess.
I just thought the movie had potential, and I think that's why it just goes a little bit higher than Dark Phoenix. Because when you go back to Dark Phoenix, and you guys haven't said Dark Phoenix yet, so I'm assuming it's coming up. But for me, Dark Phoenix was like they had already been purchased by Marvel, and they were like, "Well, let's just finish this," and just didn't give a f about it, and just played the movie, and it was bad. So, New
Oh,
Mutants for me.
I'm gonna stop you right there, and I'll take over, and what my friend's trying to say is, "Love is blind, people. Love is blind." If you get that
Take
quote
the early flight home.
Yeah, I was like, I'm jumping in here because my number 12 is Dark Phoenix. And I told this to Brian before. It feels like a streaming film. The budget feels low. It feels small. They tried to find a different way to do the Mystique makeup to where it's more of like a suit and it shows like it just does not look great. The movie was reshot in the some sense because they completely changed the villain angle of what they were supposed to be and who they were supposed to be. Once again, this film proves that Jean Grey is only a valuable character if she's the Phoenix story. And that's it. Like, you can't just be Jean and be something. Like, you have to be the Phoenix to be anything. So I feel like that's a big destruction on her character. This is an example of it's the 90s now, and somehow none of the characters have aged from the 80s. And the only reason it's above New Mutants is I could watch this one again just because it does have Michael Fassbender and it does have Cyclops in it. So, yeah, no, Dark Phoenix, an X-Men movie that should have never been made.
Solid, solid boys. Yep. No, no, you're right. My number 12 is X-Men Origins Wolverine. And even though I've watched this movie a few times, there are parts of this movie I really do like. I want to get that out there. I like Kevin Durant as I don't know why I said his last name so fast, but I like Kevin as Blob. I think he's awesome as Blob. I really like he was great. I would have liked even more Blob of him because he's great. He's an amazing actor. I liked I liked Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth. I thought he was fantastic, and I quote a lot when someone shows me something. I always go, I'm always saying, "Ooh, shiny," and I really would have liked Liev to return in Logan as X-24, but didn't go that way. I hope the Liev is coming back in Deadpool Wolverine, just something like that. But I didn't think that Taylor Kiss was completely atrocious as Gambit, but the movie kind of starts solid, and then it just falls apart when we're throwing in so many of these other extra mutants in there, and we're just trying to throw stuff in for fan service. Will I Am was just kind of weird as Wraith. It just was just like, let's just throw him in here. So many things get thrown in here, and what hurts it the most, in my opinion, is that Silver Fox didn't die, that it was part of it, and then we want to make Emma Frost her sister, and we want to throw like it's a mess. So it's my number 12.
All right.
So I think we're on 11 now.
11'd up.
Go ahead, Finch.
Well, piggybacking off of you, my number 11 is Wolverine Origin or X-Men Origins Wolverine. So, the movie has a lot of flaws, but if it wasn't for that movie, we wouldn't get Deadpool. So,
Yeah,
and then yeah, I
you're
mean,
right. You are right.
I liked the backstory of Wolverine and his brother Sabretooth, and Liev Schreiber kicked butt as Wolverine. Hugh Jackman, or not Wolverine, sorry, Sabretooth. Hugh Jackman,
Saberine.
that's right. Hugh Jackman still awesome as always. Like he did a good job. It's just what the special effects were pretty bad in this movie. Like the claws when they come out in the bathroom, that scene is horrible. But
Thank you for mentioning that,
they
because
look like the
when I
claws that
watched
have
the
hanging
movie,
off the wall.
I think about that a lot when I watch that movie.
Yeah, they look so fake. It's bad. And yeah, the Professor Xavier at the end with his face, it's pretty bad. But they tried something because if you remember, they were gonna do an origin story for like a bunch of characters.
Mhm. We'll
And
get there. We'll talk about that when we get to
yeah,
it.
first class, right? That's pretty
Mhm.
so, Origins, it was bad, but like I'll watch it when it's on. You know what I mean? Like I'll pop like if it's on, I'm gonna continuously watch it. And I remember FX would always have it on. So but yeah, it's number 11 for me.
Tyclops.
My number 11 is X-Men: The Last Stand. It's short, it looks cheaper, it's a bastardization of 2 script ideas that were thrown together to make them work. It just looks cheaper and smaller. Vinnie Jones as the Juggernaut is a joke type character.
He's a
Uh,
juggernaut, bitch.
they kill Cyclops in it, and I knew they were going to just from the trailer of that movie. I remember seeing the trailer and telling my brother, like, "Oh no, they're gonna kill Cyclops off." It just it just feels like it should be something big. Like they should have either stuck with one storyline or the other, but by forcing the 2 scripts together into one movie, it just feels cheap. And part of the marketing was they had Angel in it as like in an X-Men suit with the promos on the cover art and everything. He's never suited up as an X-Men or really. So yeah, that is my number 11.
No, I like it.
That's a good pick.
My number 11 is X-Men 1. And the reason why it's so low is it doesn't really hold up well. All these years later, not a lot really goes on in the movie.
Mhm.
As I'm rewatching it, like I was looking at all the action sequences. So you get the action sequence where they get in the car accident
Mm.
and Cyclops, shoots his blast at Sabretooth, and then he cuts the seatbelt. Storm just kind of stands there, but they both don't really say anything really. And Sabretooth has no dimension to him whatsoever. There's no real depth to anybody. And Cyclops, Storm, and like they don't really do anything.
Mhm.
Uh the team the team is, Cyclops, Storm, Jean, and Wolverine. And then Rogue, is kind of in there. And the movie is really just a Wolverine movie as he kind of gets introduced to these people. And there's not much action. You got the stupid quote that Halle Berry says where what happens when lightning strikes a toad? The same thing that happens to everything else. I made Halle Berry a hick. It just doesn't hold up well. It's not very exciting. The whole Robert Kelly turning into water thing, just weird. And I mean, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to make him like a mutant so that you'd be sympathetic to them. But then he just like dies in the end. So it just doesn't I don't know, it's just weird. It just
Mm.
doesn't hold up compared to today's stuff. So it's my number 11.
Cool.
I understand that. Like, I
Yeah,
was
I'm not
surprised
gonna
how
argue with
low
it.
it is. I was surprised how low it is, but I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, when I get to mine, pretty much the same argument, just but I'll explain more when I get there. So yeah,
Well, my number wait,
10.
we on 10?
10.
All
We
right.
on
So
10.
my number 10 is X-Men: The Last Stand. And it goes similar to a lot of stuff Tyler said. It feels a little disjointed, killing off like two of your main characters. Like I can understand one. But killing off, well, actually three, because they technically killed
Mhm.
Jean at the end. And then just I don't know. The only cool there I mean, there's a couple of cool scenes, but the coolest scene, I guess, is the bridge scene, and that's I made a joke with my kids, like, when I was rewatching all of them, and I was like, "Look, guys, look," because we live near San Francisco, so I was like, "Look what they did," you know?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I would have done the
but
same.
that's, because this happened before they were alive, so they don't
Mhm.
but, no, I mean, X-Men: The Last Stand, there's a lot of mistakes, and it just shows that Phoenix stories just don't work so far live action. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like, Kevin Feige and stuff taking over X-Men will get a correct Phoenix story and it'll be good, but as of
Down the
right
road
now
for sure. Yeah.
as of right now, both Phoenix stories are low on my list. So, X-Men: The
Mm.
Last Stand, number 10.
All right, number 10,
Cyclops.
X-Men Apocalypse. This movie should have been a really good clean reboot start because it is coming after Days of Future Past. It should have been the setup to a new trilogy. It was exciting. The ingredients were there. But once again, like we get a crappy version of Angel. This movie should have been the one time that Professor X and Magneto are together and just working together the full time. They should have been them back together against Apocalypse. But no, like Magneto shouldn't have been one of the horsemen. He should have done, they just keep like making his character pushing it away. Like, I hate what they did with Magneto in that movie, and just Oscar Isaacs is a great actor, but I don't know. I just didn't like the way they did Apocalypse. Like Apocalypse, they tried to make him more serious for when he should have been this more unfathomable type of mutant with futuristic powers and stuff. I don't know. It just to me, and then once again, like, but the good parts are the Quicksilver scene and Cyclops shows up. So that's it.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. So my number 10 is The Last Stand. And it's because with this movie, kind of like what Tyler said, you have all these scripts just thrown together. And even though we did have time to grow with Gene a little bit, especially in X2, we see the gradual changes in Gene. So to do the Dark Phoenix story in 3 should have been just all they did because this this thing of Xavier holding her
Mhm.
back, and her changing and stuff, and split personalities and stuff, because they didn't do it as an entity. They did it as a split personality, so they did a whole new take on it. And had it just been that, I think the movie could have held fairly well. But when it comes to this movie, all I'm really watch it for is Beast
Mhm.
and the last fight. Like, as soon as we get to the scene is when I start watching it, and I did freak the crap out, like, well, not badly, but I just jumped for joy when Iceman is facing Pyro and he goes full ice for the first time, like, because that was freaking awesome. And but so much just doesn't hold up well, and it's also still kind of a Wolverine story, like they put it at the end. And
Every X-Men movie is a Wolverine story.
yeah, it really is. And it just doesn't deliver. And then you get this whole dramatic thing of, like one scene I do like in that movie is, I like when they shoot Magneto with the cure in the train when he's like taking the mutants for his team, and Mystique jumps in the head and saves him. And he's like, "You saved me," you know, like, she loves him. And then he sees her like that and he just leaves her.
Mhm.
And he's like, "She was so beautiful." Like, that is really harsh Magneto, and I like that. And there's so much they could have done with this, and it's just bleh. So it's my number 10, because I really just watched it for the last scene. So, number 9, Finch.
All right. I feel like because of my last one and my like just a little mix up those two, me and Tyler's list so far have been like pretty spot on because mine is X-Men Apocalypse, number 9.
Nice.
So if I hadn't switched Dark Phoenix and New Mutants, I think our list would be the same so far. But yeah, I mean X-Men Apocalypse is just really it's kind of forgettable, and Oscar Isaacs was I don't want to say terribly cast, but the way they made him look, Ivan Ooze looking,
Mhm.
and Magneto. I mean, I don't know. That's not who I imagine Apocalypse like. And the only cool thing I think that happened at the end of that, and or maybe I'm forgetting it. Maybe it was Dark Phoenix. Is like the post credit scene where they all like had the suits. Was that a Dark
It's an
Phoenix?
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse. Yeah, where
Yeah,
they all
they all
kind of
have
like
they had sweet suits. You're like, "Sweet." And then Dark Phoenix, they all have, like, matching flight suits again.
yeah, like the post credit or like the very end credit where they go in the danger room and they're all in their like almost comic accurate suits. Like
Mhm.
that was a cool part, but the rest of the movie is very forgettable. I will say though that the storm with the mohawk was cool though, and Psylocke was cool. So, but other than that, the movie is very forget. And the Quicksilver scene, obviously him in the mansion, but they do that scene better in a different movie. So yeah, number 9 is Apocalypse for me.
Alright.
Cyclops.
Alright, so this one might throw you guys for a loop, okay? My number 9 is actually Deadpool 2,
Dude, I'm telling you, our lists are dude.
and I'll tell you why. So I recently watched both of them, and I feel like Deadpool 2 is it's fun, it can be over the top, but it's so self-indulgent, it's pushing the line of being too much where I'll watch it, I'll enjoy it, but I won't ever really, like, reach for it to put on again. Like, I'll put on the first one, and we'll talk about that later, but this one, I just feels like, at times a little too much, and then, like, the storyline of, like, the kid being the Fire Fist, like, it kinda doesn't line up of how much time would need to take place for that kid to grow up, for the technology that Cable has, and for Cable to be as old as he is and all that stuff, to come back and do it just doesn't quite line up. So, it just there's just some stuff in it that's, like, it's fun. Like, it's fun, it's a good time, but it's pushing that, like you know how, like, in Austin Powers, like, you never really like Goldmember because like, you watch it twice and you realize, "Okay, this is too much?" Like, Deadpool 2 was getting to that line where it's like, "This is getting a little too much," but it's still a fun time, so but yeah, my number 9 is Deadpool 2.
Oof. Finch, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is Deadpool too, so
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Now let the
Oh wait, no, sorry. My number 9 was X-Men Apocalypse. My number 8, I'll just
oh
jump
oh yeah,
ahead.
you already won. I'm so sorry. My number nine. My apologies. So my number nine is Dark Phoenix, and
Wow.
I rank. So watching it, it was the second time I've ever watched it, and I watched it with intention. And what I like about this movie is I like that they're showing, because remember my number one villain for X-Men was Xavier. And in this movie, they show how Charles is very self-centered. That and they talk about Mystique was a bit better in this for a little bit. I have to say I do hate Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique, and I hate all the focus on Mystique. It really does piss me off. But the fact that she wants to get away and she wants to do her own thing and she kind of like wants to try to have a life with Beast and get away from it and get away from Charles. And Charles is right where he's always wanted to be. No one's hunting the mutants. No one's hunting his kids, the X-Men. He has a phone with the president. And when that phone gets disconnected because crap goes down, he gets like really defeated about it. And we see how self-centered he is. We see how arrogant he is, how there's soldiers to him, that this was all to make him look better and his image and stuff. And we see how he, changed Jean and put these guards on her, and how it challenges that narrative. Like, does Charles really know best? Is Charles really have the best interests of stuff? And I really like that part in here. I really, really did. Because that's a part of the Phoenix story that you really need to get into. Like the consequences of Charles and what he has done and maybe the secrets that he's holding. And they made the Phoenix an actual cosmic entity, and that the way it's supposed to. And they had her in space, and they were in space, and everything happens because of Charles. Like everything happens because Charles is like, oh, they can go into space. The Blackbird can handle it. It can do it. And Hank's like, I don't know. And even though we get to the X-Men 97 argument I had with Finch of how the heck are these people breathing in space, and Nightcrawler duct tapes the helmet on himself, but Jean doesn't need one and Storm doesn't need one, like it's fine, whatever. But there are parts of the movie that actually are good story parts. And when Jean's like in the alley and she's crying and she like doesn't want to hurt people, and then we get to Magneto who has hurt people, and Jean's like, "How do you stop hurting people?" And like there are good aspects in this movie. It's just didn't really deliver, and you know so between X-Men and Last Stand and Dark Phoenix, I was thinking about changing it as we were talking with you guys, but I'm sticking with my list. I'm not making any changes as we talk. And so yeah, Dark Phoenix is my number 9.
Word.
Do you, Brian? Nobody needs you to change.
Yeah. Do your thing.
Thanks, Finch. Your encouragement is always wonderful.
It's
Because
all
sometimes I hate
subjective,
my
man.
brain because I want to make everybody happy and I hate my brain and I just want
Just be
people to
you.
be happy with me, but
We
I
are
need to
happy
stick
with
with my
you.
guns. You
Just be
tell me
you.
that, and my
They're
cousin
also
Steve does, and
but
Tyler does.
it it's all subjective. Like the little things, it's like it comes down to like personal, like in a film. Like everything you said about Dark Phoenix is completely true. I just feel like certain parts of it, they made it look cheap and
Yeah,
feel
they
cheap
did.
and did everything. So to me, that kind of makes me go
But it
because
shows
sometimes
you the potential of what it could be.
and yeah, and
And the other thing is like Tyler kind of I think you've graded it on the DC one we did and this one where you're like, how often am I going to throw this on and actually watch it? You know what I mean?
mhm,
And these are ones that yeah, maybe for that one, that's not one I'm going to throw on every time, you know?
And that's usually how I grade things. It is. But like as when if you listen to the X-Men Timeline podcast, like I really like focused on these movies and the narrative and everything. And I'm trying to grade on what really is the better movie and what has a better story. And I just think Dark Phoenix has a bit better of a story than because it doesn't jump around with so many scripts. It's focused on Gene, and I people are gonna hate me for it, but I grade it just a little bit better than Last Stand, just a little
Okay.
bit.
I would not, if you told me that, what would you just say? I'd be like, okay, I don't argue on it because I can see it.
Understandable too. Yeah.
I'm sticking with my guns here, and I'm gonna stop being a people pleaser. It's my number 9. All right, number 8, Finch.
My number 8 is Deadpool 2. So that's why I'm like, I feel like
Right.
Tyler saw my list or something, man. So
Yeah, with us for a
uh
split second. So
yeah, for me, Deadpool 2, it's I hated that the Russell kid was like the focus because Deadpool 1 was just way better, where it was more of like a love story and it was like an isolated story. This one, it's like they tried to do a lot of stuff. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. I really did like the Juggernaut fight with Colossus. I thought that was really cool. And the little cameo Easter eggs we get, like Brad Pitt and other stuff like that. And I don't know if any of you guys saw If. Just spoiler alert. If you
Not
saw
yet.
If, they there's an end credit, like when the credits are going up, and it says there's a character played by Brad Pitt, and you're like, huh. I thought it was funny, but
Nice.
yeah. So I don't know. Deadpool 2. It's not as good as the first one, and so that's my number 8.
All right.
Cyclops.
My number 8 and is X-Men Origins Wolverine. And here's why. I agree with what you guys said about it. But at the same time, this movie can be very self-contained. It's an entertaining movie if you're just watching a movie compared, because this was a big rental when I worked at Blockbuster. And when it came out, like, it had the most action from any X film at the time. And, I just recently, when I watched it with Solomon, and it was very, like, compelling because there's action, the characters are interesting, he could follow the story. And yeah, my complaints with it is they keep talking about how Logan was such an animal, such an animal. No, he's not. We never see Logan as a wild animal. And yeah, there's things in it, like, just if I was looking at it from the comics aspect of how they treated Deadpool, how
Did you see what he did to that bathroom?
yeah.
I mean, come on. That's an
Um,
animal.
but I just feel like it's not one of the best, but it is a very, like, entertaining movie, and of course, like, you love Hugh Jackman in it. He brings that charm, and it's just, and once again, Cyclops is in it, so that helps. He has a great scene of where he just tells them to point him in a direction, and he just opens his eyes. Ah!
Oh, also, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off. One of the main things a reason why I put Dark Phoenix there is because Cyclops does something. Cyclops actually has a purpose in that movie, and I thought that was important. So
Yeah.
continue. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I just feel like a lot of the other movies, like, you have to have seen a movie before it, or you have to have some knowledge, and this one you just put in and kind of go on the ride for it. And of course, the character dynamics of Hugh Jackman and Liev Schreiber are great, so it's my number 8.
All right, my number 8 is X-Men Apocalypse, and why it's kind of like in almost the middle there is it's a reboot for the X-Men. It's a fresh thing. I I like how at the end of the movie, all the X-Men are using their powers together to stop Apocalypse. And that's what we need in the X-Men movie. We need them working together to kind of stop Apocalypse. And even though Jean kind of takes the final blow there and does it that way, we see Xavier, kind of pushing the students and being kind of what he needs to be. You know, we see we see the really story with Magneto and Quicksilver. Like Quicksilver wants to say like, "Hey, you're my daddy," and we see that kind of like a little bit of inner struggle with him and him going to the mansion. It's a pretty sweet scene where he saves everybody. I don't really have any problems with this Nightcrawler here.
Mm.
I don't really have any problems with him. He just doesn't have any depth to him. Like
I
no one
think
really has any depths with this new thing.
he doesn't have the religious convictions and everything like he does that he
Oh no, he
talks
does
about.
prayers. Oh yeah, no, he
But
does.
yes, he has prayers, but like the way that Alan Cummings talks about people and the forgiveness and stuff, like there you feel it in his soul,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah,
And with
you're
this Nightcrawler, I feel like he hasn't got there yet.
no, and I like that they go see the Return of the Jedi. I like how Jubilee talks about the the Return of the Jedi, and I think it was Gene, maybe it was Gene or Jubilee says like, you know, or Jubilee talks about how good Empire is, and I think it was Gene that says, "Yeah, the third movie usually always sucks," and this is the third movie in that trilogy. That's why it's funny, and like with First Class and Days,
Mhm.
I, I, I don't think. I think that Oscar Isaac was severely miscast, and Apocalypse doesn't look too good. But the whole entire story of, how the world kind of has false gods now, and he wants to kind of bring everybody back. I like that idea. I like that concept. It just executed that great.
Well, I know that
So
when after the first trailers and stuff, some religious groups were pushing against it. And some of like the reference because it was supposed to be like Apocalypse had been these gods of different religions that people had worshipped.
I love that
Um,
aspect. I love it.
and that was supposed to be part of the storyline, but then they had to cut some of that out because it offended certain religious groups. So I just
See, that's
remember
see, that's another thing because when you watch this trailer, like, so as I was rewatching it, Jen walked in the room while I was watching the trailer, and she's like, "Why are you watching the trailer? Like, you just watched the movie." I was like, "Because when I watched this trailer, I was so excited for this movie." I was like, "Oh man, we got Apocalypse. We will build up. Their world sucks. We will build a better one." You know, it was just there was so much hype, and I also like the Nightcrawler Angel fight in the cage. I thought that was kind of cool. Like we kind of get that. So there is aspects that are decent, but this is also where we start the aging people that makes no sense, and that
Mhm,
it just really hurts it.
mhm.
So. Um,
One of the things I like about that movie though is the Weapon X element that they threw in there, right? Where they end up in and we get Wolverine escaping and they just like let him go. Like, right? That happens in that movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I know I might be in the minority of that, but I like that as I don't know, Wolverine
Well,
cameos, you know?
but the thing that I complained about and told Brian was Alex Summers has to easily be like in his 40s, and he's bringing his teenage brother Scott to meet, Professor X, and he doesn't even look like he's aged
Yes.
since he was in X-Men First Class. So they just gave him like an 80s haircut. So they really screwed up the brothers.
Yes. Yes. I don't like have all these notes and stuff as I usually do, but I'm glad you guys brought up those two things because in my opinion, you can shape a good half hour of this movie not doing the Weapon X stuff. And I kind of feel like they threw it in there because Days of Future Past leaves this huge cliffhanger of like, so what happens to Wolverine? Because Mystique picked him up out of the
Mhm.
and even though that makes zero sense, and like what did she do with them for all those years, like 10 years until Stryker gets them? So this is showing that it's inevitable for him to get the adamantium. He's wearing the visor and he has the plugs and he looks like that classic Weapon X. So that was pretty cool, but it kind of slows down the whole what we were doing in the movie. Like it's so I love seeing Wolverine, as Wolverine, but it's just kind of like, well, we have to put Wolverine in another movie type thing. So it just, I don't know, it just didn't kind of fit very well, and it just slows down the movie. It's just this half hour that doesn't really need it,
Mhm.
and yeah. So and then I also like how we get a proper Cyclops, we get a proper Jean, we see how they met, and like when he sees her the first time, he's like, oh, that's Jean, okay, and we see the fruits of that relationship starting to build. But when they do Dark Phoenix, they want to rush everything, and we don't get this build of their relationship. So in Apocalypse, you kind of get the way that you really wanted to see in an original X Men, were they meeting, but they've already been stupid for like 10 years.
Mhm.
So, whatever.
See, now because I haven't listened to your timeline thing, this is where it throws it off because even though I said I like the Weapon X program stuff, if we're basing it still on the like they're in the same timeline kind of thing, the fact that
Same
like
timeline of what?
um okay, so when Jean sees that Wolverine escape,
We can talk about it.
she's
Let's
she's
get it.
young, and then it's like we get to Fem Jensen or whatever,
Nope. Nope. Just the only
like
thing you need to know is that that timeline is a completely different timeline, and then there's a completely different timeline for the First Class cast. It's
okay,
a
'cause
that's all you have to know. So Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, day the 70s and Days, and First Class are all its own timeline universe.
well, I look forward to hearing you guys' because I guess I kind of see what you were trying to do because it is confusing.
Believe me, Tyler's going to give you the quick and the quick and the dead thing. Me, I dissect it like a god darn surgeon. So I got you. I got you. Where you think about the inconsistencies, like how they met and I got you.
Okay.
Mhm.
So my number 7 or
Yep.
8? What are we on?
7.
7.
7. All right. So back to Wolverine. My number 7 is the Wolverine,
Mm.
and
Oh, really?
I like. I don't hate this movie. I just ranked it lower because one, it was in a year or like a few years where our third or independent, like our superhero movies that year, were all about the superhero not wanting their abilities or their powers or to be the superhero because
Mhm.
I believe that's the same
Look at
year.
this guy. Look at this guy. Fucking doctor of comicology right here.
No, well,
Dude,
okay, in that year we
dude,
got
you're bringing up something that I didn't even think about. That's a dang good argument.
well,
Please continue.
this is something that
Let
pissed
me
me
get
off.
popcorn.
So we had The Dark Knight Rises, right?
That's a good one. That's good.
I believe The Dark Knight Rises was 2012, but it
Yeah,
might have been
it
like
was
towards the
2012.
end of the year. And it was a third film in a trilogy where a hero didn't want to be his self or he got his back broken to where he couldn't be the Batman that we wanted, right? Then
Mhm.
we also got Iron Man 3 where he throughout most of the movie he didn't have his suit and he was just being the character. And I'm like, okay, I get what they were trying to go for. And then in this film, we get Wolverine who has his abilities, but then his abilities get stripped away from him basically. And he's just, he has to go through it. And I'm just like, why? That was a year where I was just like, why? Like all our superheroes this year don't aren't themselves. And that was something that irritated me. There was a few other things. I did like the end credit scene where he got the suit, but it didn't happen in the movie. So that kind of annoyed me. And I don't know. This is just like I don't hate this movie. I like a lot of aspects about this movie. I love the samurai aspect of it, like Japan. I love like Japanese culture and all that stuff. Like I watch a bunch of anime. I love all that stuff. So I don't know why it's ranked that high. I think it's ranked that high because, like I said, it was in that vein of like superheroes in that era just not wanting their powers or not having their powers and basically being powerless throughout most of the movie. Repetition.
That's a damn good argument. Like I like that argument. All right, Finch. All right. Tyler.
All right, so this is where I get controversial. This is where I got notes. But my number 7 is Logan. And here's why. I think Logan's a good movie.
And we're gonna
But
end this podcast right now. I'll see you guys.
but my issues with Logan is they make it rated R. And by doing that, all of a sudden they allow the characters, they're like, F this, F this, F this. It doesn't feel like the same characters that I have been watching and grow. They throw stuff in it that feels out of place.
Okay, I'm
Uh,
bringing the popcorn back. Okay,
um,
okay.
and once again, this is the movie, in Brian and I's timeline, we both talked about that Logan's on its own because of just the stuff that's in it, or you can tie to New Mutants. But if you're just looking as a Wolverine trilogy, it completely undercuts everything that Days of Future Past set up. It kind of brushes over the world of how there's no mutants and how mutants were eradicated through food additives. Hugh Jackman does a great performance, don't get me wrong. I feel like Professor X dies like a chump Like, they really just let him go. And I mean, there's great drama between the professor and between Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman. So I mean, that's all strong, but I'm just looking as overall, like, Wolverine movie and everything. By making the villain a younger clone of Wolverine, I think just really kind of goes back to, like, really seriously, like, he has to fight himself to be like the Cliff Hero. We couldn't have just had the Ravagers or whatever they were, and those be the big villain. But no, it's a young Logan, young
Oh,
Wolverine,
it's always Wolverine. Yeah.
So I
Mm.
feel like that bothers me. The incorporation of, like, the X-Men comic books itself kind of fell out of place. Like, where did these come from? Especially because it wasn't like the newer comics, it was like these old comics. And yeah, I just feel like there's no discussion about, like, where's Magneto? What happened to him? There is a line about Scott and Jean. So they die again. Like, you know, we just saved everybody. We gave us a happy ending where the mutants got to live, and then we just now are everybody's dead except Logan and Professor X. So, and he's driving a limo. It just felt very off. And it's not a like I said, it's not a bad movie. Just when I look at in this rank of X-Men movies, am I going to watch it over and over? No. Do I think it's a great conclusion? The fact that he sacrificed himself and part of his struggle is he's losing his mutation, which I'll touch on again here in a minute. I feel like we kind of did part of that. So, like, now we're just pulling that out even more of him starting to lose and what that does to his body. So it's really, I don't know. That's my argument for Logan, but it's my number 7.
The good thing about these talks, one thing I like about these talks the most, is that you get your list, you're confident in it, you think you have a good argument of why, and then you guys just throw stuff at me. You throw some truth at us, and then you makes you second guess your thoughts. But I'm not changing my list. I'm sticking with it. So yeah, man, wow. Okay, my number 7 is X-Men First Class.
Oh, damn.
That high, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, or that low, whatever. So, X-Men First Class, I want to completely love it, but there's certain decisions in it where I'm just like, "Ah, I don't know." And I think what makes me upset about it is, and maybe I'm grading it wrong here, but probably what makes me upset about is what happens after this movie, like what comes from the movie, and that's kind of what makes me pissed off more about it. Maybe, I don't know, but so I'll start with the thing that pisses me off the most, or maybe not in all that order. So Mystique and Xavier don't have that type of relationship in the comics, and I feel that Mystique is just thrown in here because, hey, Jennifer Lawrence is available. She's a hot actress.
But this is before Jennifer Lawrence was Jennifer Lawrence. She had only done, like, The Winter's Bone before this. It's this movie that gets her the Hunger Games, that when she becomes Jennifer Lawrence.
I
That's
was
what's
wondering that if
interesting.
this was before or after Hunger Games, and I didn't look it up, and I should have. But it's just kind of like this is it's kind of it just feels like this movie and Days and Big Time of Apocalypse. It just feels like it's a Jennifer Lawrence commercial sometimes, and they make Mystique like the new Wolverine, and it's just like, and I'm watching this and I'm like, why, if we're gonna reboot this and this is a reboot, where the hell is Cyclops? I know we just killed Jean and we just killed Cyclops and just killed Charles, but we're bringing Charles back. Like, Charles is a big point of it. So where's Jean? Where's Cyclops? Like, why wasn't this movie, have Storm in it? And this is where they were forming the movie. And I know it's in 62 and they want to do things with history, but I was thinking about, like, my sales pitch for my X-Men movie, and I was thinking about how Tyler's like, I don't like when they mess with history, and I kind of like when they mess with history, and kind of like putting these little details. But like, I don't think this movie should have started like, I mean, I kind of like that it did start in 62 for the Magneto purpose of it, but I just feel like the first team should be different. We get Havoc, okay, but he why don't we have Cyclops? And then we get this angel fairy character for Zoe Kravitz.
That's one of my biggest problems is how many times I think there's 4 different uses of the name Angel,
Yeah,
4 different characters in the X-Men films series.
yeah. And she's like a fairy, and it's like, and I know she's Pixie, but like they don't call her Pixie, they call her Angel, and it's just weird. And like Banshee, the Banshee character looks like he's freaking stoned the whole time, and like he's just like, "Hey, you want to go on a date with me? I can blow fish, and I'm the deep." And um, it's just weird. Like, even though the training sequence is really cool, I do like that training montage, and I like how Cerebro and the CIA. Like, I like that, but and then it really pisses me off with Darwin, dude. Like, you sell this movie that Darwin can adapt to any situation. And I know you're trying to sell stakes, and that like that Kevin Bacon Shaw can do whatever, but like, this is Darwin. Like, you sell me that this guy can adapt to anything. I want to see what the hell is going to happen. And then you freaking kill him. And because he's black, and black people just have to die right away. Like, I didn't know that this was a freaking horror movie. Is this New Mutants? No, it's First Class. And 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 it just pisses me off. But the Magneto story of this movie, and the Magneto Xavier story with the coin and how he kills Shaw, and that whole story is perfection, perfection, and so good. And yeah, so it's my number 7 and ending my rant. Thanks for coming.
All
Stop.
right. My number 6. This is gonna be controversial probably. My number 6
Go with
is
it.
Deadpool, the first one.
Ah, okay.
And it really I love Deadpool. The first Deadpool is freaking great. It's a great movie. Just so many great parts. Like, but the only reason it's there is because there's movies I like a little bit better. Really, that's all it is. Like, yeah, I mean, but Deadpool, the first one is great. It's just that's where I had to place it. So
Yeah.
No, no, it's fine. That's fine.
My number
Oh,
6 is X-Men. Just the first one. It's kind of to me, it's a middle of the road. Everything Brian said, I completely agree with. It is kind of
thanks.
slow. It's a drama is what it is more than anything. And, I look at it too, 2000, like this is really where we kicked off the comic book craze. I remember reading about how like the budget was low and they were doing what they could, how they, try to present it more grounded. And, but the plot of turning people into mutants was done better in Amazing Spider-Man 2, or I mean Amazing Spider-Man 1. Uh and it is kind of dark, and it was interesting, but there was just such a excitement when it came out, and just like in that nostalgia love for it.
Yeah, I'll never
Um,
forget it. I'll never forget it.
but to me, like it is right there in the middle, like because they do a lot right just with the characters and the dynamics and stuff. And it is like I don't mind the Wolverine stuff because that's the entry point for him. That's setting up the story. It's from where they go from there that starts to bother me with what they do. So they lay a good foundational groundwork in the first movie. But yeah, it's just kind of in the middle. 6. X-Men.
No, that's solid. Yep, good points. My number 6 is Deadpool.
Nice.
So finally, Finch and I have, have one. I really do like this movie. It is really fun. I just the fact that it got to happen, and him, his dynamic with Colossus, man, I love it. And just the jokes, and the more kind of adult humor, and it was just more comic, accuracy. It just felt like a breath of fresh air in this universe with so much inconsistency and so much like, let's just do whatever the heck we want. I said I said to Tyler yesterday, like when I started talking about X-Men Last Stand, I was like, I think it was X Men Last Stand. I was like, this X Men Last Stand is a Sonyverse when Sonyverse was sucking on your mama's titty in Woodstock. Like, like this is where everything goes rough. And with Deadpool, just just the whole bullet scene where him cutting him down, that's so Deadpool, and him just listening to Salt and Pepper, and the the I forget what he's oh, the cocaine's next to the cure for blindness, and their whole entire argument about IKEA furniture, and like you gotta go with the Cruval, and it's
Shirt
just
cocking.
yeah,
What did I
and
say?
Sure again,
Shirt cocking it.
it's just well, I thought that was in Deadpool too,
Isn't Deadpool 2? Maybe
where
it
he gets
is.
his legs cut,
Yep.
and then he's like baby legs.
Yeah, it is in
Yeah,
Deadpool 2.
yeah, then he starts like rubbing her face with the little baby hand, and yeah, it's just I don't know, it's just it's really good. It's funny. But, yeah, so it's my number 6.
All right.
All right, my number five. My number five is the original X Men, and that's a lot of that goes back to nostalgia, to what would drive the franchise forward, to the fact that a lot. I mean, obviously, Blade was the OG to the comic
Yeah.
book films, but
Blade's
without
the John the
You're
Baptist
dang
before
right.
Jesus.
yeah, without the X-Men 2000 or 99, we
It's
wouldn't have
2000.
Spider-Man, we wouldn't have the MCU, we wouldn't have all these other X-Men films that we, enjoy. So,
I would like to
and,
say if Wesley Snipes shows up in Deadpool Wolverine, I'll lose
uh,
my freaking mind.
yeah, so I mean, that's my number five. Just, it's the OG. It just got us to where we are. And, you know, as much as like Brian and Tyler, you guys both brought up that it doesn't hold up very well, like some of the CGI on that, but I believe in a different podcast, Tyler mentioned like the reason why Wolverine might have been a focal point was because his his claws didn't
Yep.
cost as much CGI as like Cyclops's lasers
Yep.
or other stuff. So
It's more of a practical effect for it to
yeah,
show his power.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I did see an interview where Hugh Jackman was talking about like during the filming of that, there was like he had a fake arm the whole time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I don't know. But number 5 for me, the original X-Men.
Nice. All right. My number 5 is The Wolverine. And I have appreciation for this film because I like that it's small. It's a small stakes personal film that does more of a character study of Wolverine and of his grief over killing Jean and how he had to live with that and how he deals with who he is and how he feels immortal, like in wrestling with his immortality. It's the first time we really get to see Wolverine weak when, his powers are being suppressed by Viper. And I love that it's a small scale. Like the style of this movie is what I wish would have been like in my notes. I said, I'm talking to you, Wonder Woman 84. Like it should have been a small personal story for her in that film. And I like that, yeah, it's Wolverine centric as this one should, but we weren't throwing a bunch of mutants. We weren't trying to build out the world of the X-Men. We were just taking Logan on a journey. And we left and went to Japan. So like you said, all that Japanese culture and everything's there. And I appreciate all of that. And it just makes it more of a I don't know, it elevates his character a little bit more away from all this stuff that having like the other like Blob and all them does. It lets you actually dwell with him. So that's why I appreciate that movie.
No, you kind of you're somewhat swaying me, but like I said, at the same time, it was just like I felt like it was repetitive for me because we just seen that with Batman, we just seen it with
Oh
Iron
yeah. Oh, I
Man,
totally
so
get
it's
that.
like the same story beats.
It's
I'm like,
such a good argument.
but
It really
It's
is.
hard. It's hard to
no,
do
what
that.
you're saying is accurate for sure.
When
That's
you put it to that canvas, like yeah, I can totally see that. With it's like everyone has the same mindset in writing at the same time, and then we get 3 movies with the same arc, and you're like, oh, okay. All right, Bry Guy, 5.
Oh, hey, man. Yeah. My number 5 is Deadpool 2. I really like Deadpool 2.
Hmm.
I think Deadpool 2 is just Deadpool, turned up more. It's really fun. It has, it's he just says all these lines like, he references all the different like Xavier's, and he breaks Cerebro, and he's like rolling around, and he's like Stewart's gonna be pissed, and his relationship with Colossus, and how Colossus pulls him, from the wreckage after he tries to kill himself, as like, I'm gonna be a good friend, and I'm gonna clean you up, and you're gonna get through this because that's what a good friend does. And him trying to be a trainee, and 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 when they see Fire Fist, and Colossus is like, come on, there'll be trouble. And Fire Fist and Deadpool are like, that's from RoboCop, and it's just it's it's pumped up the notch. It's crazy, it's ridiculous, but sometimes I just need a break from all the drama, and this movie's just it's just a lot more fun. And I think that it shows, like, Deadpool 1, we understood that, yeah, this can work. This movie can work. And then this they just had just fun with it. And 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 I love Juggernaut. And even though they made him more comedic, and I do think Juggernaut should be a little bit more serious the next time we see him. It still was a lot of fun. And and Deadpool, has, kind of growth in this, of protecting this kid, and he wants to have a family with Vanessa, and he wants to have that next step. And and Colossus is just like, there's 4 or 5 moments that lets you be a hero. And I felt like there's kind of like a little bit more growth in some things here. And yeah, it's just fun. I like it. So that's my number
Word.
5.
Word. I got you.
All right, my number 4. My number 4 is X-Men First Class. And, going back to some of the stuff you guys both said, or I don't know if Brian touched on First Class yet. I believe
Yeah.
Tyler
That was
did.
my number 7.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I did like the portraying, I mentioned it during your script idea for X-Men, where I do kind of like mixing a little bit of historical elements with stuff. So that's something I liked. As you can see in my script, I did the Beast being human and then turning into Beast. So that's something I pulled a little bit from First Class myself, because I like that, getting Beast before he was blue. And, uh,
Yeah, that's a good point.
casting of Fassbender and McAvoy was spot on, man.
Freaking
And
home run.
yeah, and just like everything, there's a lot I liked about that movie, man. And that's why it's up there for me. And because I was like, okay, they're rebooting the timeline. Like, this is what we're gonna get. And the way they were going, my one complaint would be Jennifer Lawrence Mystique, similar to Brian's, because
My man.
I just, and knowing what I know, like how later down the road she just like hated being Mystique, it's like, well, then just stop doing it. But
Right.
but
Right.
it's but they tried to make her a focal point, like Tyler said, where she became the new Wolverine. But I do love the little Wolverine cameo, F off, and there's a
That was
lot,
nice. That's all you needed. That's
yeah.
all you needed. Just that little
And
bit.
then we got January Jones as
Mm-hmm.
Emma Frost, and she looked nice. So X-Men First Class, my number 4.
Very nice.
All right. My number 4 is X-Men Days of Future Past. I love seeing the whole cast together. I think it's Singer's best film he's ever done. Setting aside just like inconsistencies in story, and like we've already destroyed how it's all tied up, but it was good to see that. I still say Bryan Singer's not an action director, and I do really enjoy this movie. I think, like I said, I think it's one of the best X-Men, but it's one that I'll watch over and over, but it's not like a feel good movie either.
No, no.
So, but it is intense. It is really good. And yeah, so my number 4 is Days of Future Past.
I like it. I like it. My number 4 is Logan. And I wh- while I hear you, and like the characterizations, different, and like you have Charles, saying F off and stuff. I I really like how Charles is, this is the world's most powerful mind, and he's losing it. And Charles is no longer, who he's meant to be, like who he's been. He's losing it. And then, taking everything to the side and looking at it as its own universe and its own movie, and looking at Wolverine is not who he used to be, and how as Wolverine, when I found you, you were a cage fighter and you were like an animal, and now you're just kind of a disappointment. And it's just man, that was just really good. And like, and Logan, Charles says, "You're just waiting for me to die," and Logan has taken care of him and made that his responsibility because of all Charles has done for him and how much he loves Charles. And I like the scene with the family and the farm, and Charles goes to Logan and says, "This is what this looks like. This is what having a family looks like. And you can have that one day. Like that can happen for you. And you don't have to be a soldier forever. And you don't have to keep fighting and stuff. Like this could happen for you. And we'll get that boat and we'll be okay." And there's all this like hope and looking forward to just trying to get past what you are. And like, I think in life sometimes we think like this is all we'll be. If Logan teaches you anything, it's like this is what you think you're going to be, and you're just a screw up, or you're meant to be this certain way, and you can be better, and you can teach the next generation to be better. And that's what Charles is trying to teach Logan with Laura, is that she can be better. She can be better than you. And that whole lesson, and I just think I think it makes a very powerful and good film. But there should have been X-24 and not another Wolverine. And that's it.
All right. Top three. Venturine.
So my number 3 is also Logan. Brian pretty much summed a lot of it up, but I just love the heart that movie had.
So much.
Yeah, like I don't want to say I got teary eyed watching it, but I think I remember getting teary eyed watching it. Um, and there was some cool little Easter eggs and stuff in there. The fact that he was taking care of Professor X and stuff, like, and when X talks to him as like his father, kind of, at the right before he dies and stuff, and then Wolverine, passing the torch to hit, it's like a father son and then a father daughter. It was all it was is a good film. Now, in the sense of like X-Men films, aside from it being characters from X-Men, it didn't feel X-Men-y to me though. It felt like a really cool like action western.
Mm.
I don't know. It didn't
Yeah.
feel X-Men-y to me, except for the fact that it was Wolverine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I still really enjoyed that film. So number 3 for me was Logan.
My number 3, Deadpool. It was refreshing. It was made on a small budget. They were able to pull it off. It pushed the limits, and I feel like it got to a point where it was like, you were just like, dang, I can't believe they said or went there. But it was enjoyable. It's fun. It's funny. It's Ryan Reynolds being himself. And the story, it's a simple, straightforward story that's easy to follow and enjoyable. And it sprinkled in enough of the extra mutants like Colossus and everything to let us feel like it's still attached to the X world and still being kind of its own thing. So yeah, Deadpool.
Nice. My number 3 is The Wolverine, and I rank it higher than Logan, probably because I'm a sucker for samurai stories and Japanese culture. Like I love it. Like I love samurai stories. But what I really like about this is I think this is the movie where you see Wolverine at his best. And you see like the true Wolverine, the Wolverine, because the whole thing with the bear and the hunters, and with is it Yukio? Yukio is her name? Is it
Yeah.
Yuriko or no, it's Yukio. Yukio.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, like, you it's an honor to meet the Wolverine. And how she's kind of like his bodyguard, even though he doesn't need it, and she can see how other people die, and this whole like story of honor, and they adapt Frank Miller's story, Frank Miller and Claremont's story so very well, and I like that he doesn't stay with Miracle. I'm butchering the name. Doesn't stay with her at the end. Like he just kind of goes and does his own thing, and I just and how he saved this guy, but this guy still wants like something from him. Like you're wasting your power, you're wasting your immortality. Even though Logan, copies those beats of taking the power and stuff, this does it better. This does it best, and I think it's great, and I think it's very underrated. So
Yeah, it is underrated.
Nice.
All right.
Number 2. So my number 2 is X-Men Days of Future Past. And I go with that one because we get my man Bishop. I told you already, he's one of my favorites. It's the only time we see Bishop in live action so far. 2, Storm gets a little bit more of a chance to shine, even though it's only in the beginning, but like we get to see her use her abilities, and we get some good Iceman in there. I do like Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde getting a little bit more time to shine too. I feel like in the future they'll get their little bit of time to shine. And then obviously it's a Wolverine story still, but it picks right back up where, he's still got the bone claws that he gets from the Wolverine. And he goes into the past, and he's just like, it just doesn't, for me, it just like doesn't miss a beat. Now it does get a little boring when they try to have like, because even though it's like Wolverine you think is like the central focus and stuff, it still revolves about Mystique, man. And like, so
Yeah.
that's like, but we get the introduction of Quicksilver, which is a great scene when he's doing the runaround and after they free Magneto. Obviously, we get McAvoy and Fassbender, but we also get Stewart and McKellen, and just like it's great seeing that entire cast together. Getting some of the other stuff, getting some of those like cool looking sentinels from the future, and how it kind of like relays from the past, like because they get Mystique's powers. So that's how they're able to like adapt in the future. Like there's a lot to it. And then even that very end credit, like right before the credits, where, he returns to the future, and then that's where we get, Scott and uh Jean Grey, and I believe we get Beast too, and Storm. So I really like X-Men Days of Future Past, and yeah, so that's the one. My number 2.
My number 2 is X2, or, X squared. I hate when they try to give us the X-Men United, like, as the subtitle. I hated that later. But story's great. This one, I said before, like, Singer definitely took notes, put more action in it, steps up his game. Once again, this one's straight up Wolverine focused. But the addition of Nightcrawler and his whole story made this a much better film. There's a lot of nostalgia love for this one. My Cyclops gets the shaft in this one again. And that's because, when this movie's coming out, it's now a Hugh Jackman show. So, but yeah, X2.
my number 2 and my number 1, depending on the day, can interchange, but I'm sticking with my list here. My number 2 is X2, X-Men United. Man, Alan Cummings' is Nightcrawler just knocked it out of the frickin' park. Just perfect casting. The way he speaks as Nightcrawler, the fact that he has yellow eyes and not red eyes like he does in Apocalypse. He's supposed to have yellow eyes. He just looks so great. The way he interacts with people and so hopeful. And he goes on his rant like, in the Munich circus, I was known as the great Nightcrawler. I can't even talk. I'm talking like Dracula. But and people are just like, shut the hell up. Like, no one cares. And he still remains hopeful. And he just kind of makes this movie. And even though it is a very Wolverine focused movie, even video games, everything, it tells it so well as the next step of things, but you see the growth of Jean and her relationship with Cyclops there, and how she's, you know, slowly going towards Phoenix. And Stryker is just a great villain. How he just wants to destroy mutants and stuff, and it's just the movie's just so good. So I put it as my number two. So number one.
Numero uno. So obviously you can tell by process of elimination. My number one is X2. Similar, you know, similar reasons why you guys have it up there. Stryker is a great villain. Just the way they did that.
Yeah, he is.
And Brian Cox, awesome, kicks butt. I remember seeing this movie by myself in the theater because I went with a group of people, and there was like a couple who wanted to go see some romantic comedy thing, and like my brother, I think, wanted to go see some other film, and then like another guy was like, "I'm gonna go see this," and I was like, "So nobody's gonna see X-Men with me," so I went to go see X-Men 2 by myself, and I remember there was only like 8 other people in there, which is crazy. So, but I went in there and I had a blast. This movie opens with Nightcrawler in the White House and just
One of the best opening scenes, X-Men
oh,
introductions ever.
it's great. Just the oh, just everywhere, just the way Alan Cummings looks, his interaction with Storm is great. Magneto showing up and, just but him also like being the one who like turns over the school to Stryker because of like the drug thing on him. And yeah, Cyclops got the shaft, but we get a little bit of Jean Grey getting those
That
Phoenix.
Shaft is a bad mother.
Better shut your mouth.
I'm just talking about Shaft.
So yeah, man, I X2 it's my favorite. The Wolverine Berserker in the mansion, just
Yeah.
Iceman getting a little bit of like, getting more play, and Rogue still not doing nothing, but being there. And then the intro to Pyro, Mystique, transforming into like Jean and Storm. So it's like Wolverine gets to hook up with anybody he wants pretty much. I don't know. I really like this movie. So X2 is my number one.
Sweet. Makes sense.
Cyclops.
My number one is X-Men First Class. I think it is the best directed film. I love Matthew Vaughn as a director, his kinetic energy. When if you watch this kind of as its own, like a standalone, it works. Fassbender as Magneto and McAvoy, their relationship, finally seeing that really develop out. This was because, like Finn said earlier, like it was supposed to be X-Men Origins original team and X-Men Origins Magneto were two films that were supposed to be made. But after Wolverine, they decided and they made First Class and combined those ideas into one film. There are odd choices, and I understand like it was supposed to be, a reboot. And I think they just didn't want to do the same things over again. So they wanted to try different mutants. And I think that was for the detriment. One thing that hurt this movie is this came out right as Disney bought Marvel. So there was no merch, nothing for this. It was just a movie. All the other X-Men films had merch up until this one. And I just think the emotional beats are there. It's fun too. Like you can put it on, like the color, like it's such a departure from what we had. So it's not a perfect, movie. Like would I have liked the team to be different? Yes. But at the end of the day, like this one I have the most fun out of. I have the least to complain about as far as directing and production. And like I said earlier, this is when Jennifer Lawrence wasn't yet Jennifer Lawrence. So she was just an actress that was hired. And yeah, I like First Class. I think it's the best out of all of them because it's action, it's upbeat, it's got its flaws, but overall, like I said, Matthew Vaughn, I think he was supposed to direct X3 at one point, and I really wonder what that movie would have been had he directed it. So,
Yep, solid answer. And by process of elimination, my number one is Days of Future Past, and specifically the theatrical cut, not the road cut. Now, the road cut does have this like epic Iceman sacrifice himself, rescuing Rogue thing, and that's nice and all, but when you add in the Rogue stuff, it kind of like the Weapon X stuff did to Apocalypse. It just kind of like derails the movie for a little bit just to add this extra like half hour or 17 minutes, whatever. So the theatrical cut, I don't think things really miss a beat. I mean, we get this awesome opening scene of like everything being crap, and then Bishop has a moment, and Sunspot has this moment, Warpath has a moment, Blink's teleporting. Like sometimes I kind of feel it's almost better than Nightcrawler's teleporting it sometimes, but no, probably not. but Blink opening these portals and the action sequence with that, and how Iceman gets to shine and like he's doing the slide, like every mutant gets to shine. And even though it's like a big Wolverine story kind of, and Wolverine's fixing stuff, and there's Mystique in that, I feel like every mutant gets to shine, and that's really important. And it's a really good Magneto story, and Magneto has like probably his best costume overall, and we get this amazing Charles story where he doesn't want to do it anymore because his X-Men have died and they've gone out to war. Like, I don't want to do it anymore, and Wolverine has to be the one convince him. And you get that moment with Charles talking through Wolverine, like, you got to give him hope, and just how everything comes at the last second to fix everything. Like, this movie is awesome, and with time travel and just craziness, like, this movie feels like X-Men. And there you have it. There is our list. I want to thank Dre Finch for joining me this evening, and Tyler, thank you so much. And if you guys need comic knowledge out there, don't cry. Just listen to Brian the Guys. Have a good day, everybody.